I'll be on a 7 with you.
Hi, my name is Beth, and I found BTS in the fall of 2020. Sometimes I'm sad and kind of annoyed with myself that I never looked into K-pop or that BTS group sooner. The K-pop wasn't on my local radio, and listening to the radio as I drove to work had been the chief way I listened to music for a long time. Since American radio wasn't playing them, I didn't find them. Until one night in early October of 2020. The pandemic had hit, and while I was extremely fortunate to still have a job and be able to work from home, 7 months of isolating in my house alone had not been easy. By then, I'd taken to scrolling my newsfeed at the end of the day for any scrap of cheer or humor I could find. And there it was, an article about BTS's takeover of The Tonight Show. I remember seeing them on the Dynamite roller rink set. It was 7 handsome men on a bright and colorful stage, and this definitely seemed to fit the bill for news that would make me smile and help me relax at the end of another long, quiet day stuck in my house by myself. I clicked through to the Dynamite video. So the first time I heard BTS, I also saw BTS perform. I listened to a catchy, uplifting song, and at the same time, I watched one of their signature dance routines. I must have watched that Dynamite video 50 times in the first week alone. And then I fixated on the Tonight Show performance of Black Swan and watched that over and over and over. And the same with Idol and Mikrokosmos and Home. I had zero knowledge of the Korean language, and that didn't matter. I loved the sound, and I was blown away by the performances and the talent and charisma of these 7 artists. In the middle of all the fear and uncertainty of the pandemic, BTS took me out of my worries and simply made me feel good. I'd never explored YouTube before, but overnight that website became my new best friend. I found other performances of Black Swan and Idol. I found the dance practice videos. I found the official videos. Articles about BTS started mysteriously showing up in my newsfeed, which suddenly included word of Suga's absence after his surgery. I distinctly recall wondering, well, which one is Suga? And I took that first step that all ARMY take and decided to learn their names. Another ARMY was born. So the first situation that BTS helped me get through was the loneliness of isolating at home during the pandemic. I'd always been single focus. Whatever I was doing always had my full attention. So if I was working or writing or even cleaning or crocheting, that's all I was doing. I never played music in the house unless I was learning a new choral piece for college choir. But one day that winter, I stopped my work and said out loud, I cannot handle the silence in this house for 1 minute longer. And I got up and put in one of my new BTS albums. Without a doubt, it had to be BTS. It never occurred to me to choose any other music. BTS are so far away, and they're this unimaginably huge phenomenon. Yet somehow their music always hits me on a deeply personal level, as if they're singing only to me. Even at first, before I've looked at any translations of the lyrics, when all I'm going on is the sheer sound and its emotional texture. Like with Blue and Gray. Before I looked at a single lyric, that song made me stop and listen and cradle that sound, because I knew that sound. I knew that sadness and that longing. Reading the translation later only deepened that feeling and my understanding. And Euphoria. The first time I heard Euphoria, it was as if BTS reached out and took my hand and reminded me that I am loved. I was feeling very alone at the time and didn't know how much I needed to hear that until the song played and I realized how much better I felt. Song after song, their sound draws me in, and word after word, whether in English or Korean, the poetry and the power of their message make me feel seen and heard and understood. And I needed that. I needed to feel like I wasn't really alone. So that day, when the silence became too much, it had to be BTS. They got me through months of isolation. But that was only the first part of my journey with BTS. So I have an autoimmune disorder, psoriatic arthritis. Basically, my immune system is raging, and my body can't send enough signals to calm the immune response. So my immune system attacks normal, healthy tissue. When it's bad, when the meds aren't working, the pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue are 24/7. I get so much pain and swelling in my hands, I can't even open a bottle of water. Stairs become a problem. If I stand too long, my knees lock. If I sit too long, my knees lock. If I drop something, it takes me 5 minutes of careful maneuvering to get down on my hands and knees, and another 5 minutes to get back up. If I can get back up. I can't work in my garden. I can't even walk around a museum or a convention without a lot of breaks. At one point, it hurt so much to hold a comb, and it hurt so much to raise my arm, that I lopped my hair off. When it's bad, my world gets really small. And by June of 2020, it had been bad for 3 years. But that month, I went to my 4th rheumatologist and tried my 5th immunosuppressant, and I finally hit the mother lode. I felt better with that very first dose. As my symptoms calmed over the next months, I was absolutely thrilled to have my hands back and to go through my days without pain. And 7 months later, during the following winter, I'd started with BTS's more recent albums and was working my way backwards. As I experienced each album for the first time, I'd do deep dives on song lyrics, and I'd go back to my buddy YouTube and look for the videos. And one day, as I was watching them dance with such precision and power, and wishing I could dance that way too, I finally realized I felt better, but I hadn't started moving again. I was so in awe of the way BTS could move freely with strength and range and purpose. But psoriatic arthritis had put walls around my body and wired my brain to equate movement with pain. And 7 months later, even though the new med had broken those walls down, I still wasn't moving. My body had forgotten what it felt like to move, and my brain was okay with that. At first, I didn't know what to do. How do you rewire yourself out of a fear that had been justified for a long time? But I had BTS, and I wondered, what if I just tried to dance to BTS? Could I trick my brain into loosening up? I went back to Dynamite. I pulled up the video, I stood in my living room, and that first time my feet were nailed to the floor. I was so afraid to lift my feet that I danced in place. But I was moving. I found one of those videos that teaches the Dynamite choreography. I was winded after 10 minutes, and I looked awkward as hell. But I worked on it every day for a week, and I was moving. Eventually, I picked my feet up, and I danced around my living room. Eventually, I stopped equating movement with pain. I even started working out again. My whole world opened up, because BTS made me want to dance. Dancing to BTS helped open my brain back up, and was my literal first step in building a whole new relationship with my body that didn't include pain. But BTS still wasn't done with me, because one morning this past spring, I woke up and I felt like drawing. Once upon a time, if you didn't find me with my nose in a book, you'd find me with a pencil in my hands drawing. But I didn't go to art school, I went to college for mathematics. I joined the United States Air Force as a communications computer systems officer. I got a master's in English. After the Air Force, I got a job in IT, but I never went to art school. Working in IT paid the bills, but it wasn't my passion. It took me a long time to understand this, but my passion is storytelling. I am a storyteller. But would I tell my stories in words or with my art? I chose my writing. And to give my writing my full attention, I put down my pencils and paintbrushes, which was not a bad choice. I'm about to publish my first book. But then the psoriatic arthritis hit and life slowed to a crawl. My hands took the worst of it, my ring size swelling from 7 to 12. Even now, feeling better than I have in a decade, my hands are still not what they were before. Then on that lovely spring morning, years later, after months of listening to BTS, watching BTS performances, and diving deep into Run BTS and BTS Bombs and Bangtan Universe, to learn more about not only this wondrous thing called BTS, but also the 7 amazing artists behind it, I woke up and I wanted to draw again. But it had been a long time, and a lot had happened. Would my hands even work? Did I still have an artist's eye? BTS, in their actions and words, had reminded me that anything I decide to do deserves my whole heart and my entire effort. So I dug out pencils and paper, and I gave it my all. It was like coming home, like finding a piece of myself that I'd never noticed was missing, like being whole for the first time in more years than I want to count. You know it had to be a portrait of BTS, and it had to represent reclaiming my art, inspired by their sheer artistic brilliance and their message to love myself and speak my truth. Let me give you a peek. Hope you can see that. Black Swan is about the fear an artist carries for the first death, when their art no longer moves them and they lose the ability to perform. It seemed a perfect fit that I do a portrait based on Black Swan to reclaim my art, especially since it's one of the first BTS songs I ever fell in love with. So, I saw BTS perform for the first time in the fall of 2020. And even though I still wish I'd found them sooner, I believe I found them exactly when I needed them the most. When I was struggling with how painfully small my world had become. When I'd sunk into a rut so big, I'd forgotten there was sky above all the walls around me. When I'd lost parts of myself and most needed to rediscover them. I've been catching up on 8 years of music and content, and I've heard the members say more than once that they owe their success to ARMY. But there had to be something there in the first place, in who these 7 men are and what they are building together for ARMY to find and connect to. People hear good music all the time that they forget 10 minutes later. People see handsome, talented singers and rappers and dancers all the time but never stop to learn their names. So what makes BTS unforgettable? How did they become essential to my day? Maybe at first, it's just plain all about the music. Their expressive sound and personal, honest, intimate lyrics filling the silence in our lives and making us feel like there's someone out there who cares and understands. Maybe it's about their commitment to pursuing their passion, to working hard every day to be the best performing artists they can possibly be. Maybe it's because they tell us to love ourselves exactly as we are, even as we strive as they do to be the best version of ourselves we can be. And maybe it's because, even though there are millions of ARMY, they make us feel like each and every one of us matters to them. That as performing artists, they never forget that the audience is the other half of the equation. They're there for us, even if they only ever hear us as one ARMY in a sea of ARMY. We can lean on them and on other ARMY when we need to, and we don't have to go through things alone. Even if we stop believing in ourselves, even if we doubt ourselves, then we can look to BTS, because they'll remind us. They believe we got this. I'm so grateful I finally found BTS and became ARMY. BTS have had a profound impact on my life, and I sincerely hope that our journey together is far from over, that they're going to be teaching me and inspiring me to dance and draw, and reminding me to love myself and speak my truth for a very, very long time. Thank you, BTS. Borahei.